Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Setback Leadership Podcast. Our today's guest is the phrase personified. Looks are deceptive. Why do I say so? That's because when you meet E.T. Rawat, you will see a very nice, calm, quiet, and a caring personality. But inside that personality resides this gritty, perseverant, and resilient woman that she is. Well, Iti is an entrepreneur and a motivational speaker and also a e-learning evangelist. She believes in making sure that women get the right support to do their best in their career, business, entrepreneurship, and every other professional way. Iti was the winner of one of the best social leaders of 2019 and has participated in many international conferences thanks to her work. During the pandemic, she started a social initiative called the Red Dot Initiative that takes care of distressed women because of social violence, because of domestic violence, takes them into a safer zone, and then settles them in their career and in life. In today's conversation, we spoke about many facets of Iti's her own life, the kind of works that she's doing, the challenges that she has faced in her career, and how she managed to go past those, and what kind of glass ceilings did she break. All this and more in the conversation with Iti. It was one of the most fluid and heart-to-heart conversations that I had in the recent past with many other guests. So come on, hop in. Let's listen to what Iti has to say. Hi, Iti. Thank you so much for joining Setback Leadership Podcast with us. I'm so excited to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Srijata. It is always pleasure coming and talking to you, and I've been a great admirer, of course, of you. So it's always a pleasure.
Oh my God. It was always other way around, I thought. So looks like we have a mutual admiration
Good
club
admiration.
among us.
Absolutely.
Super duper. So let's get straight into the topic, right? I mean, before, this particular season, we are focusing primarily on breaking glass ceilings, breaking stereotypes, and other kind of challenges that specifically women and men, to a certain extent, leadership faces in the organizations and otherwise, right? So before I get into the topic, I first want to know a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you become the leader that you are today? Are you seen as an influential leader in your genre, in the kind of work that you do, and you have done that work bit by bit by bit. I mean, I know you for a long time now. So how did you become the Iti Rawat that you are today?
Actually, even I'm confused that how it led to this. My work started, and the focus was completely on work, Srijata. It was never around becoming powerful, successful, influential, and things like that. Yes, I do make sure that if a work is getting done, it has to be talked about. It has to be told to the world that this is the kind of work, because it helps other get inspired too. So when I started off, it was merely from the thought process of this is the requirement, this is the need of the hour, and this is what somebody is supposed to do. And because there was no one in that space, I identified it as a gap, and I started it off. You call it WEFT. WEFT Foundation was an NGO. It was primarily started from a pain point that I myself suffered, that women entrepreneurs do not have the right opportunity, the right platform to move ahead, to move ahead of what they are doing right now. I found that apart from me, there are many other women entrepreneurs like that who are just not able to grow further. They were stuck somewhere in their career. They could not grow their revenue much. There were multiple opportunities that was provided, but it was very male centric. So that's where the thought process came in, that why not start and lead something which can help women entrepreneurs also grow. And it started off with a very, very simple networking session, and has come to currently this point where we are actually helping out and creating more women entrepreneurs as well. So our vision is now to have that 50% representation of women in startup ecosystem as well. So that's where Web Foundation came in. And similarly, the other initiatives also, which has become pretty famous in Web, it all started with some or the other pain point or problems that we identified are currently being faced by women. It can be direct attack to gender equality. It can be a direct problems for uh, where we are moving ahead and how we are moving ahead. So that is where the whole thought process came from as far as WEFT is concerned.
Wow. I mean, I picked up that 50% representation in the startup. That's a huge target. That's, I would say, really audacious goal, right? I mean, I call it big, hairy, audacious goals that we all have, right? Which we are scared of, really scary goals. That sounds like a scary but an interesting and challenging goal. Let's do it together. Edie, when you're talking about Weft starting as a networking session, networking platform and then becoming what it is today, I feel great that I was one of those early adopter of Weft, which used to meet up in some cafe or the other in Bangalore and chit chat and collaborate with each other and network with each other. From there, and today, what you do, there's a huge nostalgic journey in that. And there's a sense of pride that I whenever I see how Weft has grown and how you have really done it for them, and as well as the Red Dot initiative that you were talking about, the direct attack in gender equality. How did Red Dot happen for you? I mean, that was something that I don't know the inside story behind that. I'd love to know that.
So again, it started from a pain point. Very clearly, when the lockdown started, that is when we realized that there is a lot of rise in the gender domestic violence cases. And myself coming from WEFT, I was generally asking the women in WEFT group, and I sent it out in the group. You might be remembering it, that if anyone is facing any problem during pandemic, because businesses were hit at that point of time, please let us know how we can support and help you. My intention was to support women in business, but what was coming back to me was there were a couple of cases that came, which was around domestic violence. People thought that it's a NGO and a women-led NGO, so probably we can help there as well. Uh, Somehow I managed with my resources to rescue this lady as well as provide the right place and shelter for her as well. And when I dug deeper, it really moved me. That first case that got solved, I realized that it was something which is big, something which is happening around. And when I dug deeper and tried to look into the data, I realized that during lockdown itself, the cases were almost 10 times higher than the previous years. People were going berserk. And that's where the thought came in. Most of these cases were not getting reported. So first thing was to build that awareness around domestic violence, and that it has to be reported out. So the thought was pretty simple, that place a red dot on your palm and make it like a SOS symbol for the domestic violence. If you are a victim, just ask for help. And that got speeded up. It spread out like wildfire. We actually moved from one state to the other, and there were hundreds of cases that started pouring in, literally one after the other, one step at a time. We started solving these cases. We also at the same time started developing our processes internally. We made a simple plan that, one, we will rescue. Second, we are going to provide mental health counseling, because we used to get women and victims in a absolutely a shocking stage. And third, provide the financial stability for these women. So at this point of time, as I say, we are almost going to touch our 400th case in domestic violence that has come to us. But the lives that we have moved and touched are somewhere around 160 cases is what we have changed, and we have provided the financial independence or provided rescue operations or something or the other with them. So it was an immense amount of work, and right now, in fact, we are working towards some of the underprivileged women to make them as entrepreneurs as well.
Wow. I mean, that's some kind of a feat to achieve. That too during the lockdown, during the COVID-19 crisis situation, where we ourselves were going through so much of challenge, and you taking this up is hats off. Honestly, hats off. It is amazing. That's all I can say. So, Iti, I want to bring back our attention towards the topic now. When it comes to corporates, right, women leaders in corporates or women in general in corporate, one of the biggest challenges they face, and I've seen this, is the problem of glass ceilings, the problem of stereotypes
Absolutely.
that they have to go through. So, what according to you is a glass ceiling? Tell us your views on that.
So I would not say that it is just related to the overall only men being biased towards women. It's overall corporate world itself, the way it has been shaped up and the way it has taken up. The glass ceiling starts from the moment the leaky pipeline starts, and which happens somewhere around 30-35 years of age when a woman is in the corporate. They either get married, then they have to move towards the husband's city, then they have to leave the job. It is always the girl's career that gets sacrificed at that point of time. Even during childbirth, most of the time the mother becomes the first caregiver in India, and then also they give up their career very easily and readily. Although government has made provisions, there is a maternal leave for 6 months, but isn't that actually putting all the burden on the woman to take care of the child? Versus if you look at the other countries like New Zealand, etc., they have actually introduced something called as parental leave, which allows both the parents, both the partners, to take up the child care leave, whoever is the first child caregiver. And it can be a man, it can be a woman, both. Nowadays women are getting back to work, they are taking care of the children also, and men are equally co-parenting with them. So at this level, I believe that corporates should start taking up these roles of parental leaves instead of introducing just the maternity leave. To make their board more inclusive, there has to be a conscious decisions and conscious calls that needs to be taken. Breaking the glass ceiling will not be easy for a woman unless and until they have to they will get a complete new environment for them to work. Many companies are doing it. Just for example, we heard some of the companies has also introduced period leaves nowadays. That empathy, that extra support that a woman needs, that's all it takes for somebody to move ahead. When you start introducing these kind of mature policies and inclusive policies, that's where you will start seeing women getting more developed within the company, and you would be able to start breaking the glass ceiling. So I believe this glass ceiling is more of the mentality and the environment that has been created right now in the corporate sector. Once you start breaking this, and women are also willing to go ahead and start moving ahead, they also should have that mindset that yes, I have to achieve. That's where things can happen.
So true, so true. You're talking about the burden of taking care, I mean, the child care on the women. Now, I want to ask you another, question to deep dive into it around this. Like, yes, as a society, we think that yes, we need our women to go ahead and pursue their dreams, but we are never saying it's okay to have a shabby house while you're taking care of your career. Are we saying that?
That
Or are we telling our women that it's okay to ask help from your partner when you need to put your effort in professional endeavors?
absolutely.
We are not saying that. We are saying, there are proverbs that we are saying that she is Lakshmi also, she is Saraswati also. These are, by the way, Indian goddesses. Lakshmi is known for wealth, and Saraswati is known for the study, knowledge, wisdom, etc. Right? Now you want them to have this also as well as that also. You want them to be a perfect housewife or a homemaker at one end, and another end you also want them to be a great leader in the organization. My question is, do you think it's even fair to ask this kind of, fair to put women through this kind of expectation burdens? What is your thought on that?
Absolutely, you're bang on. In fact, these are the drives that we also have been taking out for our gender equal voices. When we are talking about fair share of work, it has to be at home as well as in corporate both. Very clearly, there was an initiative that we drove during the lockdown, hashtag divide the work. This was all around that because we suddenly started getting complaints and started talking about that women suddenly, because of the lockdown, has got all the burden right now of the household work that they are doing. At the same time, they're also taking care of their offices while at home. So it was immensely frustrating for and it was putting a lot of mental pressure on women specifically. So there was a encouragement that we did that men should also participate in household chores. These days you can see that many men are coming forward and they are actually equally participating, but are all men doing that? No. Is the responsibility actually falling on the men? No, it is not. And the expectation is that a woman should have the tip top household as well as they should take care of the work simultaneously. So that definitely is an unfair ask. And in case you are doing that right now, if you're hearing this and if you have the thing in your mindset, please understand that we might be multitaskers innately, but you can't expect the world from us. Women are also human beings, they also need rest time. In fact, there are studies nowadays that are coming that women should be sleeping a little extra so that their mind can work. So I totally believe in these things that you need that additional rest, you need that additional balance of life, and additional support that is required from the home front as well. If you're working outside, at home, the work needs to be equally divided between both the partners.
So true, so true. And you know what? Recently, this I'm asking you because this is something it made me go, huh, like that, right? And it was a post that came in LinkedIn. A friend, colleague of mine, had posted a picture of his wife, who's also a corporate leader, holding a 1.5-year-old, 2-year-old baby while cajoling the baby and taking a call, a office call. Okay, and he put that picture up, glorifying, saying that she is just a superwoman, and she can do these things. I don't know how she does it. I can never do this. So this is what I call the glorifying of superhuman syndrome or superwoman syndrome. What is your thought on that? How is it helping us or not helping us as women leaders?
Um, so I see it from a very, very gender neutral perspective. There might be men also who would be doing it, cajoling the child at the same time. There was one very famous viral video that came out recently wherein this person is giving an interview to BBC and the children just walk in, right? So either it could be men taking care of children, or it could be women taking care of the children. At the same time, they might be doing work. And whenever a childbirth is there, that's an added responsibility. The responsibility needs to be equally divided between both the partners. If a woman is doing that, great. And if a man is doing that, then also it is great. I would not say that he becomes a superman or a woman becomes a superwoman by doing this. It's something which should come in naturally. And it's a power that you get, that you are able to control both together. In case if you're not dividing that work and if you're not dividing that responsibility, then both of you are culprit. Glorifying something around this is not really required, but at the same time, if it can be an inspiration for both men and women, then definitely it should be glorified. I mean, not just why just women, even men should take inspiration from that lady, right? That she's taking care of both the worlds and handling together. And kudos to that woman that she is able to do that. I'm not able to do that, but yes, definitely it's unbelievable to see such things happening.
Yeah, true, true, true. So, Iti, let me ask you your personal experience around glass ceilings or stereotypes. You have been there in this industry for a long time now. You have met and you have worked in different kinds of profiles, done different kinds of work. Is there any time that you felt, what is this all about? What kind of a stereotype it is, or what kind of a glass ceiling it is that I have been put into? And what was your approach at that time?
Wow, so I have faced a lot of biasness, and I've said this multiple times during my speak ups and during my these video interviews and calls, that when I was in corporate, then there were multiple times where I got to know the world is not really gender equal. Not just in corporate, outside corporate, also in the world of entrepreneurship, also I realized the same thing. When I was working in one of the very big companies in sales team, I was told that girls can't do sales, or they are not meant for sales. So that was the first hit that I got of a non-gender equal world, or a biasness that people showed towards women in corporate. That's when I realized that maybe you'll have to start and work extra and work more to ensure that things are not seen just from purely gender perspective, but it is more seen from the way you are as an individual, you are as a professional. Lot of women at a very very early stage, as soon as they enter the corporate, they start facing these situations. They are not just seen as a professional, but more from the lens of gender. It can be towards over sexualizing them, about the kind of clothes that they are wearing, or why they are putting on makeup, or why they are not putting on makeup also. At times when they move up the career ladder, they are actually told that they have not done enough hard work to reach or achieve that, which is absolutely nonsense. I completely believe if a man has to work through different ladders and he has his own pain points through developing his achievement and achieving where he is, so does a woman. The problem with women is that it is over emphasized on the gender side. They try to see it more from the lenses of, oh, she's a woman and she has overachieved, that becomes a problem. Another story that happened with me was during entrepreneurship, when I was out there in the and trying to get hold of some or the other funds to ensuring that my company could sail through. I don't know if you know this, but I also run a for-profit organization, for which I was out there asking and knocking all the doors of VCs, etc. That was my first interface with VC world, which was absolutely gender biased. So a lot of VCs currently, and even not just in India, but outside India also, if you see, the VC world is right now filled with these white men who have a lot of money. And in India, it is held mostly by men. Very, very few, I think 1 or 2% women VCs you will see who's actually making their mark right now in the industry. But when they start talking about the work, and when they start talking about the business, when a male founder is asked question, he will be asked question on the growth, on the rate, how the revenues can grow, etc. Versus how a woman is asked is that who's going to take care of the children if you are married, how are you going to manage, what is your work life balance, how much time you can dedicate to this company if you are also at home. So these are very biased calls, and these are the things that people should refrain from when they are talking, and when they are trying to talk to a founder and discussing with them the growth perspective. It can't be a male-led startup will give a different growth versus a woman-led startup would give different growth if the idea is the same. It has to be gender neutral again. By the way, the studies are also reflecting right now that women led businesses these days are giving more profit than men led businesses. So, in case if you are one of those VCs who are still living and dreaming about that women led businesses will face problem because the CEO is a woman, then please wake up. This is your wake up call, and this has to change.
So true, so true. You reminded me of my fundraising activities as well. Before I became a speaker and a coach and an author today, I have run two, startups. And for the first startup, I had gone out to raise funds. Funnily enough, I was supposed to be the founder and the CEO of the organization, and my husband was the sleeping partner in the business, right? So most of the times, I was the one who's hustling, who's doing all the work and things like that. So whenever I would go seek funds or talk about business growth or things like that, they will ask, "Where is your partner?" I would say, "Listen, I am the CEO. I have the all the rights to take decisions. He's only a sleeping partner. It's not really his baby, it's my baby. I'm the one who's going to take the decisions. I'm the one who's going to be responsible for all the growth. You can ask me anything that you want." No, it will be good to have your partner in the room. And I used to go, "What?" Because it was all the hard work I was putting. He was just a sleeping partner because we needed a partner. That's the way it is. But then it was always asked, "Where is your partner and why is he not there in the room?" So that is one thing. I hope it has changed. Today I'm talking about 2013-14. That's when I was raising funds for my first startup. I hope that situation has changed a lot at this point in
There
time.
is
If you
awareness now. I'm
uh,
back to the VC's world right now, and I see that there is some sort of awareness now, but but the VC scenario has not really changed. We still see 99% of them are all men, and haven't really met many VC women founders yet who are funding.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, there is I would say, even if it is not out in the open, there is a hidden, I would say, thought process or a mindset that a woman led business might have bad decision making, whereas the studies are actually proving other way around. So I do see a huge amount of mindset gap at that point in time. Right now, I want to come back to you again, Iti. When this kind of situation happened with you, when when the VCs were asking you weird questions, let's put it that way, how did you respond? What was your thought process, and what has been your learning from those episodes?
Very clearly, I could relate to what is happening, and at that point of time, I was a little aggressive. I still remember that day. I'm not like that now at all. I was very aggressive on that room, and I actually called it out that the same questions could have been asked from me. Um, so there was a silence and a lull moment for some time in that room. But nowadays, I see a different approach. People do ask me these questions still, and whenever they do, I have got a very, very professional reply to that. That the same thing could be done by a man also. And by the way, if a woman is doing it, it will always be better than what a man could do. And I see it more from the angle that the innate quality of running a business is there in women, which a lot of men would not have. We are persistent, we are very good negotiators, we are multitaskers, That is what is required to run a business and a startup. So very clearly, it's actually a positive thing that we are a woman and leading businesses.
I agree. I mean, I'm not saying men businesses don't do well, but there is a different kind of skill set a woman brings onto the table, and I think it requires, equal, if not more, amount of recognition. That yes, that is also skill set. Like, I mean, whenever you talk about leadership, it's all about powerful, strong, go getter, and all of these words come into the picture. What about empathetic? What about conscious? What about people leadership? What about resourceful leadership? Let's say, what about crisis leadership? Who are leading the pack in such situations? So, of course, there is complementary skill sets in both women and men in terms of leadership when it comes to, and I think one thing that can make any organization better is to have a balance between both the genders.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. And what you are talking about, empathy, uh, consciousness, socially consciousness, etc., people leadership, everything. I think a woman leader definitely brings along whenever she's part of the corporate world.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Iti, you have also, dealt with a many other women entrepreneurs and leaders yourselves. You run a training company yourself, and you train leaders too, right? So, what has been your experience when it comes to, career growth of women leaders? Are they getting stuck because of these stereotypes or glass ceilings that are being put onto them?
Yeah, it's very much prevalent, unfortunately, Srijata. And whenever I speak to them, there are multiple times people come out with their biases right now that they are facing all across. So, right from things like that, if a man is saying, then they like to listen, versus when a woman is saying the same thing, they don't want to listen. They want a woman leader to shut up in the boardroom, whereas a man can speak. There's a lot of mansplaining that happens, not just inside the boardroom, but outside as well. I mentioned this before also, the kind of clothes women are wearing, be it sari or be it short skirt, they're always put on the judgmental stage and they are being judged at all point of time. So these are the situations that currently all women are facing, and these situations has to be curbed out, and it can't be done just by bringing in and calling yourself a diverse and inclusive organization. This is a mentality change that needs to be driven. If you can drive that mentality change, and it has to start from home, it has to start from office, it has to start from everywhere, all across. When you start changing that, that is where the difference would come in. I mean, look at the world right now. People don't even feel safe. Women don't feel safe to go to work. So, first step for you would be to start building a safer workplace for women to come and work. That would be a first step. And then you move to the next and next and next.
Hmm. So true. So true. Yeah. I mean, this reminds me about safe workplace, an incident that happened in one of the Bangalore corporate houses. I was talking to a leader, and he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, we have made our workplace safer for women." I said, "Wow, that's amazing. How did you do that?" So he goes on to tell that, yes, after some of the unfortunate incidents that happened in Bangalore a few years back, see, we have now made it very, very safe for women. I said, "Okay, how is that? Tell me how. What did you do?" And he went ahead and he narrated that now our organization has made it clear that women need to leave office by 8 p.m., and they will be given, no, not 8 p.m., 6 p.m. They would have to leave office by 6 p.m., and they would be given, escorted cars so that they can go and be safe in their houses. And at the same time, if they need to stay back to complete certain tasks, then they would be asked to take permission from their organization, their bosses, their senior bosses. Then I asked him, how is this anyway helping women? So he was completely lost. All right. He was like, what are you even asking? This is a brilliant thing for women. They've been safe. They've been given, they've been given the transport to go back to home at the right time. They can take care of their family and etc. etc. I said, think about it. You're talking about women empowerment and you're forcing women to adhere to some random rule because something else has happened somewhere else, and your government, your organization doesn't want to deal with the actual situation, but they want to carve women from doing or walking around or moving around freely. One, you're stopping their fundamental rights. Come on, it's a fundamental right that you are not allowing them to utilize. Secondly, think about
And
it.
these are the reasons why women face a lot of difficulties whenever there is a gender neutral position. Then it doesn't go to women because they know, the bosses know that she will leave by 6 o'clock. She is going to take maternity leave and the childbirth will happen. So 6 months, who's going to give that? Uh, these are the reasons why women are not hired in corporate world. So that things needs to change from the grassroots level. Very right.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, that's exactly what I asked him. I said, okay, you have a team member who's a woman and she's doing amazing work, but you know that she will leave office at 6 o'clock. Are you going to give her the promotion? Are you going to give another male candidate the promotion? That's when he realized that what was really wrong here. It's like, we are shooting the wrong enemy right here. Not doing the right things at the right time for the right person and the right reasons. I think that's where corporate leadership should wake up and take proper decisions.
Absolutely.
That's one thing. Now, Riti, I want to move back to you again. So I have a very curious question here for you, Iti, and that is that you are a multi-talented leader. You run a for-profit organization, Think Hall Academy, where you train people. You also run a not-for-profit organization called WEFT, and you also have a social initiative going on called Red Dot Initiative. Apart from that, you are also a mother, wife. You are a dynamic person who is always available and ready, and at the same time enjoy life. I know it's a cliched question. I hate to ask this question, but I'm sure a lot of women would want to know this. How do you manage it all?
It's typically imbibed in me, Shijita, is what I would say. I try to maintain a very good work-life balance. Yes, I work to a tremendous potential, and I also realize that at times that I've worked a lot today. But whenever there's a work that happens very well, then I take a very good break also. So it's a balance that I maintain. I give time to myself also and to my kids. I ensure that in a day that happens, and both the work is actually treated like work, and I give time to both equally. So currently, this is what the focus has been, that throughout the day there has to be a routine that needs to be followed. I manage my time well, and I'm able to follow my hobbies and work for myself as well.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. I want to probe you a little bit further here. Can you give us a breakdown of maybe an hourly time of E.T. Raut's typical day? How does it look like? What do you do? Like, what time do you wake up, and what happens every hourly basis? If you can just tell this, because I'm sure a lot of women will be wondering, where the hell do you get so much time to do so much with your life? I think that will be a good input here.
So it's like a continuous changing habits that I inculcate and try to imbibe more better habits on a regular basis. I've always been an early riser, so that helped me a lot. So my wake up time is these days at 6 a.m. and 6 to 7 is typically my workout time. I make sure that some or the other way I have a workout either at home or outside, but I would definitely do that. I generally start my day with 4 5 glasses of water. That gives an instant energy as well. Uh, and post workout, I start off with my spending some time with my kids. I check out my mails, or if there is any social media updates and all that needs to be given. All those things are done by 9 a.m. sharp. I have to be ready and I need to sit down for my work. My work starts exactly at 9 a.m. sharp. And I try to finish it by 6 p.m. Of course, taking breaks of lunch and all the tea and everything in between. Post that 6 p.m. if the work is finished, then it's a great day. If it, in case it is not, it is stretching a little bit. So I try to maintain a separate space in my house where I can take up my work and everything. That time nobody has to disturb me. Post that, it's kids time, so I try to make sure that I put the kids to sleep. I spend time with them. Weekend also, I try to make sure that I do some activity with them. It could be sports, it could be outside, inside the home. And I do a little bit of cooking also. I love cooking, so during weekends I try to make sure that I do a small amount of cooking, not much. But that's how life goes. And weekends are there for fun or vacation or doing any hobbies, etc. And during the day, I make sure also that I don't spill over some work to the next day. I very strongly believe in that thing that kal kare so aaj kare so ab. So we have to just stick to that. That's about it.
Nice. So for our English audience, people who don't understand Hindi, what she said that do what you had to do, yes, tomorrow, today, and if something had to be done today, do it now. That's what she meant, right? So great. I think one more thing that I want to ask you here is that you said you also take care of your hobbies. When do you find time to take care of your hobbies, my dear?
So as I said, weekends are generally the time for me which is off, and I don't try to pick up a lot of work during weekends. In There are few weekends where you have to work, so then it's a different domain altogether. But during weekends, I try to make sure that I spend some me time, and that's where the hobbies and everything comes into picture.
Neat, lovely, lovely. I think you were recently featured in Levi's Shape the World campaign. How did that happen? Tell us a little bit more about it. How did you get shortlisted? What was it like being on TV, and how was it being shot and things like that? So tell us a little bit more. Give us a little bit details about that event.
Well, actually, a lovely experience, and I'm really not sure that how I got shortlisted. When the company who were creating it, they were the creative team, basically, who contacted me. They had my full biodata. I'm not sure how that happened, but they had done the complete research on online, that what I have been doing, what am I, and what are the different initiatives about Red Dot initiative, everything they knew. I'm sure that there would have been a lot of discussion on the board table and all that they would have done before they even contacted me. And they just told me that this is what is it, and would you be interested in keen? I said, why not? I just jumped on the opportunity. And it took some time for the preparation and everything. And within 6 months of, I think 3 months of time, they called me to Bombay to do the shoot. That was an awesome experience. I'd never seen such a full blown shoot happening. A day before, they would come for your dress rehearsals. There were people around who did makeup and hair and everything. Then they tried to tell me about the setup, that what exactly it is going to be. And during the shoot, they just made me feel very, very normal. I just had to sit on the chair and talk like I'm talking to you right now. That's about it. Somebody was asking me questions and I was answering them. And they did all the magic of editing and processing and making it look beautiful.
Amazing. That was some feat, I must say, and an experience of a lifetime. What do you say?
Absolutely. It was a lifetime experience. I suddenly saw my social media following started growing after that. So it was definitely a life changing moment. Yeah.
Nice,
And
nice.
I
Now,
met Faye there itself. Her shooting
oh,
finished just before. I finished shooting. So I got a chance to meet her there.
Amazing. And she is another feisty lady, isn't it? Wow. Oh, wow. Amazing. So, as a leader, you have faced yourself a lot of glass ceilings and stereotypes in your lives as well. So, what has been your go to tools, techniques, or strategies that has kept you sane, made you grow, and not get bogged down because of those challenges?
I think the this is something that everyone tells me also, that I've come with a lot of grit and perseverance. So I just keep at it. I continue learning from my failures. It's not that things are very hunky dory. It looks very nice from outside, but failures happen almost on everyday basis. There are clients that we lose. There are profits that don't work out. There are at times mistakes that you make, and there are small and big mistakes that you make when you are running a business. But once I learn from it, I make sure that it doesn't get repeated, and I continue at it. That's the only thing. And no matter what happens, I'm not going to give it up. That's how what the rule is. And that's what keeps me going again and again. And I continue at it. There are critics who come and talk about it. There are people who come and give feedback, reviews, and all. I have to take it positively. And when you start taking it positively, you realize that you are on the right track. And when you mend things and you recreate things in a better way, it's uh, it's very powerful. I strongly believe then whatever new comes out, it looks nice, and that's very self satisfying.
So true. So true. I mean, what I got from this section is that your grit and perseverance has taken you where you are.
I would say that yes, I'm very stubborn. Or in the other words,
For the right reasons, isn't it?
It's not like I want this gadget, or rather, I want to do this dream. I want to complete this dream. I want to go after it, isn't it? It's that. Super. I like stubborn women like that. In fact, I'm another stubborn woman.
you. I was going to say that I see your life actually like that as well, moving from a clothing brand then to a speakership and then starting your own podcast. That's an amazing journey as well, Srijata.
So
Love the
true.
way you're moving
Yeah.
forward.
I think it has been, in my case, it has been, of course, the grit and the perseverance is, of course, there. And the need to, see something or need to create a legacy of my own that I can leave before I leave this world for good, bad, ugly, to leave something that I was known for or that I could be remembered for. That is something I think that nurtures me to do whatever I'm doing, or that pushes me to do whatever I'm doing. I mean, why I said I'm stubborn, that's because my husband keeps telling that I'm very stubborn.
Yeah.
Not that I believe everything that he says, but this one I do. Right. So, okay, let me ask you this question for our listeners, and this is for the women listeners and others who are stuck right now, in their different lives, in their different challenges. What would you give them as tips, or what would be your suggestions to them? Maybe two, three, four, ideas that they can really do, or they can take action in their own lives right now to make it better and go forward towards growth instead of staying stuck.
See, it's difficult being a woman and being out there working on your own, making your own business, or even in corporate world. If a man gets two obstacles, a woman might get 100 to cross over and then achieve what she's able to. But in these hurdles, there are several times when mentally we are pushed back. It could be due to circumstances around us, it could be due to people who are influencing those circumstances, and obstacles grow further. But people who overcome those obstacles, those are the guys who actually make it to their dreams. And they achieve what they have to. So just keep at it, don't give up. That's extremely important, because the world will be after you to give up. But if you are headstrong, if you stay at it, you will see the same kind of people who have been creating obstacles are there standing with you, praising you, and talking about it, that how this woman has come out and how this woman has achieved this feat. So please don't get stuck. um, and definitely don't get bothered with what is happening around you. It has to be you. If you decide that you have to put your feet up and that's about it, that's a different story. That's something that is your own call.
Lovely, lovely. So I feel there are two strong tips to pick up here. One is a don't give up attitude. And second, as you rightly said, that there will be other people who will applaud you, who have been there, done that, and who are probably going through the same path. So I would equate that to finding your tribe, finding your wolf pack. That's what I call it, right? I mean, if you have a wolf pack which is always pushing you to do better, more, like Iti is there in my wolf pack and vice versa, like that, find people who will push you up, who will really, yeah, who will help you grow, who will take that chance, who will laud you whenever you do something that is even little worthwhile to mention, right? So these are two amazing tips that Iti gave us. And last but not the least, this is of course the last question, but this is probably one of the most important questions, and that's for organizations, right? I mean, we do have a lot of listeners who listen from an organization's point of view. And the question I'm here to ask you is, Iti, that you work with a lot of organizations. What has been your experience with them when you see them that they say that I want to have more gender balance, or I want to get rid of glass ceilings in my leadership? How have they been doing work in their own organizations? And what can other organizations learn from them, how to get rid of glass ceilings, stereotypes, and the blockages in their leadership teams?
So, needless to say that it has to start from the scratch. You have to change the overall mentality. If you are part of a corporate leadership, first of all, never undermine a woman who's working, and don't see them from a gender bias lenses. Even for men also, I would say that don't see them from that gender bias lens, that he's a man, he's supposed to work late, he's supposed to stay back, he's supposed to. That's where all the problem starts. So, be it a man, be it a woman, don't just call yourself a diversity and inclusive environment to work if you have not really made it very diverse and inclusive. And inclusivity comes from everything, not just men and women. There are other genders too. There are other kind of people too, especially abled, etc. That also makes the whole world very, very inclusive. That's where I would start to put your attention from. Start from the minute you are writing your JD. Why can't we write gender neutral JD? There are several JDs as a HR person that comes to me, which talks about he should be this, he should be that. And we have to actually call them and ask that, are you preferring only male candidates? They say that no, it can be anyone, it can be female candidate too. So we actually suggest the corporates that please write a gender neutral JD for this candidature, and moving all across to not being biased about the kind of leaves that they are taking, supporting them, bringing empathy towards women who are actually the first child caregivers. It could be men also who are first child caregivers. You have to bring empathy for them as well. Bringing empathy in terms of when they are going through those crux and problems, like periods are something very, very specific to women. So those 4 days of the month, you go through very, very hard pains, and you have to be empathetic towards that woman. You can't just make them work, etc. A woman also has to work towards it. You have to make sure that people don't just see you from your work perspective, and you can't play gender card every time and every place. That makes your presence, your professionalism very, very weak. So from the moment you start off entering the workplace, till the time your reviews and your appraisals are happening, till that time there should be no gender card played against you or for you also. That's very clear. That what makes a corporate a beautiful corporate, and something which is based on equal opportunities and gender equal world. um, that's how I see it, but it's a utopia, right?
Yes, it is, but I think we will get there slowly and steadily. And I mean, I think this is the perfect end. Though it is an utopia, we can make it a reality.
And we can make it a real.
Yeah, for our future generation, we have to do it. If
Yes.
we have not seen it, I totally believe that our daughters should not face such situation at all.
Absolutely. And you and I both have daughters. So we have extra responsibility in our shoulders to take care of it, isn't it? So for the organization, let me sum it up. Write gender neutral JDs. Point number 1. Point number 2, make sure that you're truly diverse and you're truly inclusive. Don't just say for the sake of saying that, yes, I am inclusive and I'm gender diverse. If you're not, accept it. Acceptance is the first step to make a change. 3, make sure you're not looking at someone from a gender biased lenses. At the same time, you're being empathetic to specific needs of women. Because no matter what we say, the world is yet to be perfect. The world is yet to be balanced. So let's contribute to that balanced world. And here I am thanking Ethi for bringing that balance beautifully in the Setback Leadership Podcast. Ethi, thank you so much. This was a great, great conversation. I always love talking to you. You know that. I just don't want to let you go. But there is something called time as well, and we have to keep up with the time. So I have to let you go right now with a promise to talk to you again very, very soon. Thank you so much for joining the Setback Leadership Podcast.
Thank you, Srijata, for this opportunity. It is always pleasure speaking to you.
Same here. And a big virtual hug from my side,
which I'm missing today.
Oh my God! So these two women, when they talk, that's when they make right.
So watch out the world.
Super. What a beautiful and calming conversation we just had. Some of my learnings during these conversations happens to be that stay gritty. Do not give up. And make sure you find the right wolf pack, a right tribe to nurture your dreams. So leaders, are you listening? At the same time, she also spoke about organizations. What can they do to make sure that their organizations are not facing the challenges of glass ceilings, stereotypes, and imbalanced workplace? She said it is important to write gender neutral job descriptions. It is also important to see things without the lens of gender. At the same time, being empathetic towards the special needs of women. This has been my learning, and this is what I gathered from the conversation in a nutshell. What has been your learning? Tell us in the comments. And if you would like to know more about setback leadership as a concept, feel free to read my book, which is available in Amazon all across the world. Tell me, how do you like it? Tell me what kind of conversations would you like to hear in the upcoming episodes of this podcast, and I will do the honors. Speak to you soon. See you soon. Until then, stay safe.